Consider supporting Archaeosoup on Patreon for as little as $1 per month. Link available in the video description.
A wizard is never late, Bilbo Baggins, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. Hello and welcome back to another Digging the Game. In this series we play computer games as archaeologists, but today we're doing something a little different. Not least because I'm wearing my wizard's hat. I like it a lot. But actually mainly because we are going to be taking a quick look at a recently released trailer for an upcoming, as yet untitled, sequel to Zelda Breath of the Wild. Lots of people are calling this Breath of the Wild 2, but this announcement trailer released in the E3 press conference from Nintendo is essentially just confirming that this game exists and doesn't give it a name. But I'm interested in this because it builds on the approach that we've been developing and exploring in this series for a while now in the version of Hyrule that we see in Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo Switch, in so much as it strongly hints that there's more to be seen in the archaeological and historical narrative as presented in that game. This trailer quite literally digs deeper into the world that they established and has some nice little moments that potentially hint at things that we've already actually been discussing and exploring in Breath of the Wild. I was actually inspired to actually make this video by a lovely comment from Lily Ray on one of the previous Digging the Games, where she sort of confirmed some of my thoughts and suspicions. It was nice to know that I wasn't alone in this, and I'd love to see your comments and theories in the comments below. But let's take a look at the trailer first of all in its entirety, and then we'll go through it bit by bit. Here we go. Wispy bits. Backwards music almost. Exploring a cavern. Something's afoot. Now that reminds me of my first archaeological dig, I have to say. Obviously not. And there we go. The sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is now in development. Now, as you probably almost immediately picked up in that trailer, there's a very strong, as I put it, in a response to Lily's comment, a very strong sort of Indiana Jones Temple of Doom kind of vibe going on. I'll just mute it now as we go through. Not least with this implication of deep hidden magic, which I've seen some people comment on as almost though this is text rising from what is actually a spectral hand there. Actually, if we just pause it for a second on that image, we can see that there's a sort of a protrusion from the ceiling, almost like some sort of receptacle or an antenna for this magical force coming through, possibly from another dimension. Oh, there's a hint there, maybe. And coming down, spiraling down and holding in place with this spectral hand a being who looks very much like a series staple antagonist, shall we say. We'll come to that, back to that in just a moment. I very much like the exploration theme, this idea of going through these caverns, finding ancient stories painted on the walls. This is very archaeological. without a doubt. And also, actually, it ties in with some of the artwork associated with Breath of the Wild. We see here what looks like possibly Ganon on a horse with a trident, which is something that we have seen him wield in the past. And this is reminiscent of artwork that showed the hero, who looked a bit Ganon-like, actually. The hero fighting Ganon, or Calamity Ganon, on a piece of cloth, a sort of a linen or a woven tapestry type thing in Breath of the Wild. So if we go back a couple of frames, we can see actually that the trident-wielding horseman is accompanied by at least two other horsemen. There's a guy here with a bow and arrow, arm outstretched, ready to fire. Someone here as well. Right in this, you can just about see the horse just here. It might be a bit hard to make out on the screen, but it's worth, if you can, watching this trailer for yourself, and you might see that. Also, actually, there's another chap up here, possibly wielding a spear on a horse as well. So this person with a trident is part of some sort of invading horse riding force. Here we are coming down on the or from the ceiling onto that spectral mass in the centre of that chamber. It's an interesting perspective to have. But again, all this magic rising up from it, and here this is so incredibly Temple of Doom. I love it. Riding this elephant bovine type beast through the cavern. Maybe they've been traveling for hours or days to get here. But then again, at the end of the trailer, we see that all this happens seemingly underneath Hyrule Castle. So maybe they've just been going downwards as opposed to horizontally in the landscape. The glowing crystals are quite funky in terms of the atmosphere, but also all of this artwork and all this artistry on the wall, which is very reminiscent of the Zonai people. Now, I have developed a slight obsession with the Zonai, I won't lie, but the fact that within Breath of the Wild they have this acknowledged mysterious group of people who have left monuments in the landscape and used to live seemingly focused on the Faron region, but also left the labyrinths as well in different parts of the map. It's so delicious from an archaeological perspective that you can't blame me for being obsessed with it a little bit. But here we see actually some very similar motifs. We see a dragon-like nose, mouth with a curling cheek. This is very similar to the sort of stuff that you see on the entrances to the Zonai labyrinths that we looked at in the previous episode, and all of this chunky architecture is very reminiscent of some of the stuff that we see in the Faron region, actually from the Zonai. So I think there is potentially a Zonai connection here, and maybe the Zonai and the Tweely, or the Twilight people from Twilight Princess, have a connection that, again, we've discussed in the previous episode. I also quite like the rat that we see here scurrying through the cave. It's quite atmospheric. Again, very Temple of Doom. Zelda has clearly had her hair cut, a bit of a bob. Maybe it's a travelling haircut. Maybe she just fancied a change. And Link still has his heroic ponytail and sideburns of justice. Also, he's still carrying the Master Sword, which is good. Good to see that he hasn't lost it. Here we see another angle on that beast of burden, something between an ox and an elephant and a hippo. Zelda's clearly riding it on the cushion, and we can see that there's a book or some sort of table strapped to the top of the pack animal. A series of things like bedding and packs and chests and things, and two torches as well. It's quite a hefty animal. And here, rising out of the water, we see spectral emanations. Emanation? That's quite hard to say. Emanations coming out of the water around these collapsed pillars. Again, very archaeological in terms of their features, and also very reminiscent of the Zonai ruins as we see in the Faron region. I think there might be something to this, but we shall see. The rats being overcome by evil magic. Here we see a bridge across a chasm, more of these glowy rocks. These aren't spectral emanations this time. And this architecture, I'm not sure we have seen exactly this elsewhere. It is, however, vaguely reminiscent of the the wooden bridges, the tree bridges that we see, the swamp bridges that we see in the Faron region. But I wouldn't want to hazard too much of a guess. It's interesting nonetheless, though. It's a very ornate form of architecture, and as I say, it's not quite something that we've seen previously. So that's something to keep an eye on. I just discovered something close upon the hand, and here we see what the hand is holding down, and that is someone with red hair and a jewel on their forehead and lots of jewellery. Now, red hair can mean really probably only one thing, and that this is Ganon, or maybe Ganondorf. This is the human version or incarnation of the big bad in the Zelda games, really, ever since, in particular, the Ocarina of Time on the N64. And another reason why this is a good bet that this might be Ganondorf is the jewellery. In fact, the jewellery is very much reminiscent of the Gerudo, as we see in Breath of the Wild. They have very similar jewellery, but also crucially, Ganondorf is a Gerudo male. He's of the Gerudo, as established in Ocarina of Time, but also it was hinted at in the narrative of Breath of the Wild as well. Urbosa, the Gerudo champion, very much regrets that her people gave the world this big bad guy to have to deal with. So I think this is a safe bet. This is probably Ganondorf, the human incarnation of Calamity Ganon, who we defeated in Breath of the Wild. So this may be his human vessel being restricted by this white spectral hand. Now, just to be clear, we're just going to go back a little bit, because as we can see, the spectral hand is on top of this corpse, and the corpse seemingly is emanating that evil, dark, purpley black magic which we saw overwhelming the rats just before. But the fact that the white hand is spiraling down from the ceiling, I think indicates that it's coming from elsewhere, that it's a power that's been put in place and is coming through a dimension, or coming through from somewhere else. This is something that we see echoed in, for example, Twilight Princess, and also actually some other games as well. For example, even Skyward Sword had elements of this sort of travel between times and places that was facilitated by portals, and I think that's what we might be seeing here. But what excites me is this. It is the jewellery on this hand. It is, again, very familiar. It is actually, interestingly, a cross, I think, in some ways, between the styles of the Sheikah people, so people who made the Sheikah slate in Breath of the Wild, who made all the little temples of testing and shrines that we see throughout the land, in so much as you have these sort of almost circuit board like highlights on the jewellery, which is very reminiscent of the walls, for example, in those shrines. But there's something about this jigsaw like higgledy-piggledy right angles sprawling sort of form of jewellery that just makes me think of the Zonai ruins, and also actually of the Twilight or the Tweely people. So again, maybe we're looking at something here, something that's going to build on that mystery. And this is actually, this hand in particular is what Lily pointed to in her comment, and this hand is actually what inspired my initial thoughts along these lines. What do you think? Please do comment below. Clearly, though, the hand doesn't hold the corpse still for long, and he seems to escape. We have a quick succession of imagery there. I'll try and get through it without giving myself some sort of seizure. Link, I think, puts his hand, yes, too close to it. He goes to touch it, clearly sets something off, because obviously the hero has to have something that he's done in order to fix it, I guess. We see the magic exploding back up towards the ceiling there, which isn't good. Actually, I'll try and go step by step. There we go. Oh, that's the black magic coming out of the corpse. Again, this sort of, Zonai. It looks very step pyramid-like, very much like the sort of stuff we saw in the jungle, to do with the Zonai people. So I think this is Ganondorf reanimating, coming back to life. Someone reaching for someone. I think that's Zelda Link reaching for Link. This is presumably the temple that they've gone into to actually access this corpse. And look at that. That just looks like Zonai architecture. All of this, the pillars, the monster sort of iconography, the feet there. I don't think we've seen the feet as a feature in Breath of the Wild yet, but the idea of entering a monster, entering a beast, almost like a bat actually, with the pointed ears and the teeth there, very much Zonai. I think I'm basically convinced that the Zonai are linked with this. So we rush into the temple, and the ghost hand grabs Link. So maybe one grabs the other, then the ghost hand grabs them. Could it be that the ghost hand is going to be instrumental to this story? Maybe it's going to be maybe Link and the ghost hand will work together. Maybe Zelda actually might be the protagonist of this story. Who knows? Wouldn't that be incredible? That's quite exciting. But again, it's a hand with agency. It's a hand that wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. It was doing something to that corpse. And here it is now deciding to rescue with its long nails, or at the very least grab Link and Zelda and stop them from falling. Oh, yeah, there you go. The moment that the hand comes free, and Ganondorf is released, it seems. There's this. Oh, this is. I think this is back in time. I think this is Zelda falling again. Very Temple of Doom. Very Indiana Jones. I like it. Lots of intercutting now, I think, between moments, but close up of the Ganondorf corpse. And again, I think it just confirms an awful lot of what we were thinking. The glowing red eyes, very much Ganondorf trope. The jewellery, the red hair. And now outside, we get to see what they've unleashed, presumably while exploring the caverns underneath Hyrule Castle, which again is very archaeological. History below the modern world. I like it. I like it. And now the castle rises up with whole new elements revealed, presumably because of these two meddling where they shouldn't. And voila, the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is now in development. I, for one, can't wait to see what this game looks like and how it plays, and what this implication of narrative and then the history of what happened before the events of Breath of the Wild are revealed, and what we get to add to that mythos that we've been exploring so far in Breath of the Wild. Hopefully you guys have found this interesting. Do you have any thoughts, comments, ideas, theories? Let me know below. And of course, we're going to continue to explore the world of Breath of the Wild in this series. But I wanted just to hazard a guess here, because I may be completely wrong. And we'll get to look back on this in the future and go, ha ha ha, Mr. Soup, you were so wrong, so wrong. But it's fun nonetheless, isn't it? For now, just to stroke our beards, tug on our wizard's hats, and mull over the possibilities. As ever, guys, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.